Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be listening. It's another episode of The Imperfect Prophet with me, your host, Wonder Wendy. So, this past week, I got my teeth cleaned, which is a lovely pleasure. I'm so glad I'm on a dental program now that lets me get my teeth cleaned 3 times a year. I actually notice the difference when I don't get to my teeth cleaning, but that's not the purpose of this episode. I was talking about my teeth cleaning because I sat there in the chair. I was listening to Phil Collins and the Police and other music that somewhere in my brain, I consider that current music. Now, if you recall, a few weeks ago, I talked about Muzak, that piped in canned weird music that tried to make pop music sound acceptable to older generations. And by older generations, I mean my parents and grandparents, not me, obviously. Yeah, I'm the age my parents were when Muzak was considered acceptable. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, that's Phil Collins being played in a dentist's office. What's up with that? That's current music. They play music that's acceptable to old people in dentist's office, don't they? Wait a minute. This is music I listened to in high school and college, which means it's 30 to 40 years old, which means that when I was in high school, that's the same equivalent to the big band era that my parents listened to. Now, I still consider Phil Collins and the Police far more cool than my parents ever were. Am I deluding myself? This is one of the problems of watching the clock go by in our lives. Another stellar example of this is Turner Classic Movies. Now, Turner Classic Movies used to be movies that were made before I was born. Once in a while, something might sneak in from the 60s, but for the most part, it was movies from before I was born. Those were classic movies. And recently, Turner Classic Movies has been showing movies that were made in my lifetime, and not just a few, like a lot of movies from my lifetime. I don't know about you, but there's a little part of my brain going, no. And this is one of the challenges of finding ourselves aging. Remember, aging happens. It's a privileged age because the alternative isn't very good, is it? But getting old is a choice. So I still try to occasionally listen to contemporary music, like just tell my Spotify or whatever to say, hey, play me some current top 40. Some of it I'm not thrilled with, and then others I go, that's really good. I had the privilege of seeing Cyndi Lauper this week. She played in Phoenix. Great concert. Great concert. Now, I was listening to Cyndi Lauper when she first came out. Loved her. Loved her spirit, loved her enthusiasm. Guess what? She still has it. Talk about a role model for aging with grace. And I'll get to that more of that later. But what was interesting was that her opening act was a very young performer who I had never heard of before. And neither had the friend who I took to the concert with me. And yet, when she started playing her music, my friend who was with me said, oh my gosh, I love that song. So she also makes a practice of occasionally listening to contemporary music so that she has a little bit more of awareness and doesn't get old so fast. Because as soon as you stop knowing what's happening in the world, you are getting a little bit older. And it's comfortable to stick with what you know, but keep expanding your horizons, keep learning, keep growing. So this young artist is playing, and she's lovely. I caught my old age catching up with me because I said things like, does she know she's not really wearing clothing? Is she wearing underwear? Is that a sports bra? And I caught myself thinking these things, and we laughed about it because I realized that was me being stodgy. I'm like, the mom in me is coming out like, oh, honey, could you have chosen a better outfit? Let that go. Let it go. I did realize later in her performance that I needed more drama from her clothing so I could better enjoy her songs. I wanted to have something flowing in the breeze or something like that. And maybe she needed a wind machine and a flowing cape to make that underwear outfit work. I don't know. That's just my little mom perspective. And if you ever see Dea, you can have your own perspective on how she dresses and how she performs. She did seem to have some very powerful songs, and I wish I could understand the lyrics better. I have to spend some time going and researching her lyrics so that I can say, good thoughts. I can learn something from a younger person too, and not be judgy and dodgy and judgmental. Ooh, hard words, aren't they? Another thought I had as we watched this young woman perform And the audience would very politely go, nice song, nice song, nice song. But nowhere near the enthusiasm you see later when Cyndi Lauper comes out on stage. And I turned to my friends and I said, can you imagine maintaining your enthusiasm as a performer when you know that most of the people in the audience have no idea who you are and are just waiting for you to finish so that they can get to the headliner? The peril of being an opening act. Not easy, but she delivered. And now I want to learn more about this young performer and better understand her music and figure out why Cyndi chose her, because Cyndi Lauper did not just say, hey, give me a headliner, somebody cheap that I can fill in the gap with. No, Cyndi Lauper intentionally chose a young performer that she could lift up, that she thought her fans might connect with. So I have to listen to Cyndi Lauper and learn a little bit more about this performer. Again, being open-minded and continuing to grow, opening up new neural pathways that keep us from getting old. We've all met that person. You walk into their house. Okay, so this doesn't happen as much anymore because this is a generation that's going away. But have you ever walked into a house and the carpeting feels old and the wallpaper feels old and their dishes feel old? It feels like a time capsule. Time capsules are fascinating and I love them. That's part of the reason I do so many estate sales, because some of those houses are time capsules and they'll be gone soon. So I love to see them and understand the culture that preceded, that these people lived in. And probably someday my house will be just that same time capsule, but I'm going to try and avoid it. I'm going to try and add new things and stay vital. And that is part of the trick of the wonderful bucket list life, that you keep adding to who you are. You keep learning, you keep experiencing. If your body won't let you do it, you read about it. If your eyes won't let you read about it, you listen to it. There's always a way to keep being vital. When my father was aging, he was fading in an assisted living facility. I would work with the therapist to say, what can he do to experience some of the joy of still being vital? And they had raised gardening beds that he could go out and touch and do things. And because he couldn't read as well anymore, people would come in and read to him. So there are ways to continue learning. There are ways to keep experiencing. There are ways to not get old. And I encourage you to explore those and find your best self. Because if you're not living, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. I know that's scary and you can do that at any age. I've seen people in their 20s who start to shut themselves down and they're not living a full life. They're not living a life. They're just going through the steps. But as we get older, it's easier to fall into this trap. I'm drinking while I'm talking to y'all because I realize I've been getting dehydrated lately. So please excuse the pauses and the beverages. So back to Cyndi Lauper. Here's a woman in her 70s who was incredibly dynamic. And I never fully appreciated her vocal strength before. I love the lyrics. I love the songs. You sing along to them, you bounce along to them. But I was actually watching, this is the first time I've ever seen her live, watching her throat vibrate because she has such a strong vibrato. She has such a strong voice. A lot of artists that you watch as they get older, they actually have to have backup singers who fill in the gaps where their voices have lost their edge. And she hasn't. And I don't know whether she's just had great vocal training or she's taken great care of her body or she's just a superwoman. But either way, it was incredible to watch. There were a few times she slowed down a little bit and you're like, ooh, this show is hard for her. But at the same time, there were also times where we were watching her body move with such rhythmic precision. And it was always aligned to the lights, the projections, the music. There was nothing about her show that was unplanned. And yet she still made it seem like it was the first time doing it. And she was doing it just for you today. There was a candid nature about it that filled my heart with joy. I was so pleased to be a part of that audience. From the moment the first confetti cannons went off, and when I say confetti cannons, there's that light rain of confetti. It actually felt like it was tapping on my head. There was so much confetti falling. When I got home and undressed from the concert, confetti fell on the floor because it had gone down my cleavage and filled my shirt. It was stuck to my hair. So it was, as I brushed out my hair, there was confetti falling on the bathroom floor. So much joy, so much exuberance, so glad I went. But Cyndi Lauper's energy should be a role model for anyone who is over the age of 20 because she's still doing it. And she's doing it with some health concerns too. There's not without. So she'd planned her show very carefully. She had moments that she stepped off stage and got costume changes. And probably there were people toweling her down, hydrating her, giving her a little bit to eat, whatever she needed. Well, she was backstage changing costumes, 5 wigs, and even more costumes. It was incredible to watch. And a couple times her band or backup singers would entertain us a little bit while she was backstage. One time she had a video montage that she played while she was backstage. Very cleverly done to give her little bits of breaks and then allow her to come back on stage and be very present. So, what can we learn from that? If your body and brain no longer allow you to do things at the same pace that you did when you were 10, 15, 20, 30, how are ways that you can build in breaks, stay hydrated, stay focused, and still have that joy, that exuberance, and push yourself a little bit further than you thought you could? How's that for a thought? I'm just, I was inspired. I want to be that energetic as I age. I want to take care of my body. And as we said, getting through anything, hydration, good diet, sleep, mental health. All of these things will help you stay younger even as your chronological age advances. Oh, and get up and move sometimes. For me, it's my hot yoga practice, and I love to take long walks. But find what works for you. If it's a long walk at the mall, walkers are a thing. Go meet other mall walkers first thing in the morning or later in the day. Although the mall gets crowded this time of year later in the day. So maybe not. Maybe you can't even get a parking space later in the day at the mall during the holidays. But that's a great way to get out. I always love on Thanksgiving night walking around my neighborhood because you see families walking together. That doesn't happen very often. And it seems like on Thanksgiving night, you'll go out for a walk and you will run into 4 or 5 or even more families walking off turkey dinner, walking off the pies, walking it off. But you know what they're also doing? Have you noticed when you see a family walking together, they're laughing, they're talking, they're experiencing memories. So whether your memories are of the old concerts, I saw REO Speedwagon at SPAC in 1984, 5, might have been 1985. No, it was 84. Anyway, or if it's memories of a newer artist that you're learning something new. The generations communicate with each other better when they're taking a long walk. Don't know why it is, but it always seems to work. And they need to hear those stories now. My parents are gone, and I can't ask them questions anymore. When I want to know what they did when they took their first airplane flight, I have to guess or talk to my siblings and say, did you ever hear a story? But even then, it's a secondhand story. So I don't have my parents to ask anymore about what were their good old days or my childhood, the parts I don't remember. So take those walks because they're good for your mind and your body. And when your family's around for the holidays, drag them outdoors to take that walk with you and have a great conversation. And remember your old days and tell them things that they'll go, wait, you did what? And that is so much fun when I tell my kids something and they go, wait, you did what? Or even good friends. Like I told you, I had a friend in town to watch Cyndi Lauper with me, and there was something we were talking about. Blessed, I can't even remember what it was right now. And she said, I didn't know that. But we were having long conversations and catching up, and there was ground to cover. So the oldies are goodies. You don't want to talk about it all the time. Do not live in the past, but don't let go of it either, because there's so much to be learned. Oh, and speaking of learning, I collaborated on another book that just came out recently called Lessons Learned. The digital version is currently available on Amazon. And it's a group of authors who each wrote something they've learned, that something they would tell their younger self to remember and make them maybe not have some of the same bumps that we had to go through. It's a great book. And all these women show very different perspectives. And there are lovely little quotes in there. It's one you should definitely put somewhere where you look at it once a day and kind of go, what page am I? And just open it to a page and see what the spirit is moving you to see and learn today. And learn from somebody else. And in return, learn about yourself. So, yeah, I have to acknowledge that the chronometer on my life is moving and that I'm older on the calendar than I think my body is or my brain is. But that's not the end of the world. And my favorite music is being played in the dentist office, and some of my favorite movies, ouch, old movies, are being played on Turnet Classic Movies. But that's also a wonderful opportunity to share with friends and your children or the people you inspire, because even if you don't have children biologically, you can mentor and inspire the next generation. And that's really important. So pick up a good inspirational book and move forward and reflect back at the same time. I know I'm not asking you to do much, right? Just juggle 3 balls in the air. But juggling is possible too, as long as you don't try and juggle too many things. And unless you're really expert at it, stay away from juggling chainsaws. That always scares me. So, anyway, it's me, Wonder Wendy. I'm an imperfect prophet. These messages I feel are so important, and I love sharing them with you. And I love getting the feedback. I was at an event this week, and somebody actually quoted me back to me, which was great. So, keep listening, share with your friends when you hear a message that resonates and you think, hey, my friend Debbie would really benefit from this message. Debbie, you should listen to this podcast. Oh, and please post a positive review because that's what makes the world go round these days. But really, I'm enjoying talking to you. I hope to hear from you on my social media. And until next week, have a wonderful day, a day full of wonder. Stay hydrated and all things in moderation, including moderation. Have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you soon.